You are listening to This is Oklahoma, hosted by Mike Hearn, telling stories of Oklahomans and those that have made it their home.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma. Mike Hearn here, host, back with another episode down in downtown Oklahoma City today. We're in a building that I've actually recorded in before. A few episodes, well, probably 100 episodes ago, I was at 1032 Space with the guys at the fashion store down the street. But we're in, I guess, Deep Deuce area? Let's just call it that. Talk about some commercial real estate, some cars. But before we do, I want to thank our sponsor, the Oklahoma Hall of Fame. As always, they've been a huge part of the podcast, sharing Oklahoma's story since 1927. Just a great building to host your wedding, too. I mean, just an awesome building, so and just a huge partner of us. So a huge thanks to them. For more information on the Hall of Fame, you can go to @OklahomaHOF on Instagram, and then follow them for more information online as well, www.oklahomahof. So today, like I said, we're going to talk a little bit of real estate, a little bit of car stuff. My guest today is Zach Martin, and I'm going to talk a little bit about his story. People probably know him. People probably see his lime green spaceship Mclaren driving around downtown every day, but we're going to talk a little bit about his story and find out what makes him tick and who he really is. So, Zach, thanks for coming on the podcast. I really appreciate your time and excited to hear more about the story.
Thanks. Appreciate you having me.
You bet. So, like I said, most people will know you from showing up to car shows or driving the car around town. It's extremely bright, got a great set of new wheels on it. But we'll touch on the car stuff later.
Thanks.
Before that, where are you born and raised?
So I was born in Edmond, grew up there, went to high school there, went to college there, went to OCS, and then went to UCO, and I like Edmond a lot. I've since moved downtown, but I'm in Edmond just about every day.
Got you. So growing up in Edmond, obviously it's not what it is today, right? But the traffic was probably still bad back then. Yeah,
I mean, used to you could like drive across town. Now you need to plan your route and fill up on gas a couple times. It's growing. It's really good to see it growing. So it's doing. Edmond is growing. It's a good place.
Yeah. And family as well. You got brothers and sisters?
Yeah. I've got an older sister and a younger brother, and my brother's a Marine, and my sister lives in Dallas, and they've moved away, and I am the kid that stayed behind, I suppose. So.
The middle problem child?
Yeah, it's the middle problem child that never left the city. And, I like it here, though. I like Oklahoma City.
Yeah, so it seems like you're pretty home-based as well, right? Like, always stayed here, grew up here, went to school here. Yeah. What's kind of like, when you're in high school, and are you into sports, or are you kind of into, like, just the books instead? Like, where are your passions at?
Yeah. I played soccer through high school. I played a lot of soccer after high school, really. I played club at UCO for 4 years, and then I played indoor for years. So, mostly soccer.
Soccer makes you tick then.
Yeah, it's good. I really got into indoor, too. It was really a lot of fun. So
yeah, out of it must be a strange sport to grow up here, right? Because soccer's not the thing. Like for me back home, like it's football or rugby, right? But out here, it's like I see why it's a lot of fun to play. But out here, it's like you play soccer. It's why didn't you play the others, right? Yeah,
I play a lot of ping pong these days, as we probably observed. We're sitting at a ping pong table. But I'm really into it. So we do like tournaments, and I have it's like the funnest, dorkiest thing at the same time. So I like ping pong.
My freshman year in college, we had a tiny dorm room, and someone was giving away a table. I think some senior was graduating. Was like, "Do you want this table?" I'm like, "Yes." And you could basically play table tennis all day, but that's all we did because you couldn't fit anything else in our dorm room. And trying to get to sleep at night while my buddies are playing, table tennis or ping pong, as I'm trying to get sleep for a golf tournament, was not a smart move. But I was good in my freshman year. I'm terrible now.
No, I took it so far as there was this place in Crossroads Mall called Carl's House of Pong. Yeah, that's a real place. And I went up there and started taking private lessons of ping pong, which, and I remember sitting there, we're like having deep discussions about the backspin of the ball and what that does. And I thought to myself, this is what I always wanted to do with my life. Here we go. Take private ping pong lessons at Carl's House of Pong. I'm pretty sure that nobody there had a girlfriend, but yeah, there we were. And yeah, my paddle, like, you can actually like stick the ball to it and the ball will come up with it. It's like that sticky.
Nice.
Yeah, it's legit. So yeah, it's a good time.
I mean, you could be in the Olympics, right?
Yeah, well, I don't know about that, but I play a lot anyway. That much I know. So yeah, it's fun.
That's awesome. I love that. So growing up, then obviously you seem super competitive. You know, one of three kids, and like I said, you kind of love staying around home. And it seems like Edmond and Oklahoma City had a really good soccer base at that time as well, and still does today.
Yeah. It was a lot of fun. It was real popular thing, and it's just kind of the one sport I played. I mean, I tried other sports. I wasn't any good at them at all, but I played a lot of soccer, so it's good.
So at UCO, were you an student athlete, or you just said you played club, and that means two different things for me?
Yeah, I mean, it was a weird deal. Okay, because of, what is it called, Title 12, we couldn't be varsity. But they did give scholarships, and we traveled. So we played Kansas, we played Dallas, we played... we'd travel, we were on the road. And so, I mean, it was, I think at that time, it was called the OCCSL, Oklahoma College Club Soccer League. All the local colleges had a club team with OCCSL. And it was, anyway, so.
Yeah.
I mean.
So you were effectively a student athlete.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying really hard to talk it up. So, so we'll go with that.
Really important.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. When you get to college, do you kind of already have the idea of, hey, I'm going to do this degree, I kind of know my path, or are you just kind of like much more like I was, like, we'll just figure it out?
So I was really lucky as a kid. From the time I was 8 years old, I wanted to own and operate commercial real estate. I remember being a kid, some kid would be like, I want to be a fireman. The next one would be, I want to be a cowboy. I want to own and operate commercial real estate. And that's what I always wanted to do. When I went to college, I said, I need all the real estate classes. I need all the Spanish classes. That was always been a big passion of mine, learning that. And so for me, it was easy. I just went there and I knew that's what I needed. So.
Why? Family in it? Like, where do you get drawn to that? Play Monopoly too many times?
Yeah, I guess. My family was not in real estate. When I was a kid, there was like the greatest place on earth. It was this place called IB's. It's this famous landmark out at Broadway and Waterloo, and we would go there. And I remember one day I was really little. Somebody said, "He's that guy over there. He owns this place." I was like, "Wait a minute, you can own a place? What?" And that's what I want to do. And I'm telling you, since I was 8 years old, my mom will tell you that's all what I always wanted to do was be in commercial real estate. So. I really consider myself very fortunate in that regard because I always knew what I wanted. And today I love it. I mean, my favorite day is Monday. I show up to work. I like what I do. And it really made it really simple. When you, like in high school and junior high, I always knew what I wanted to do. So.
Right. That's kind of, I was watching a video. It's funny you said that. I was watching a video this morning, and it was, I'm a golfer, right? So I was watching kind of PJ Tour, kind of they do like segments on players. And for some reason, Brooks Koepka's one came up. And they interviewed his dad, and his dad was like, he wasn't as good as a kid, right? And his dad said, you think of a plan B, and it's like, Dad, I'm going to be a professional golfer. Like, there is no plan B. Yeah. And that's like the same thing you just said, right? It's like, there's so many instances where people just commit to one thing. That's the only thing they think about. That's their entire plan. And that's it, right? Mm-hmm. And they don't even think about failing or anything else. Like, and it seems like, the same thing, right? You knew exactly where you wanted to go. The decisions you had to make, were already to that North Star of, I'm going to be in commercial real estate and I want to own buildings in one point.
And conversely, I always felt kind of bad for like friends of mine that were
figuring it out.
25 and 30, and they still don't know what they want to do. I mean, I'm just really fortunate that that's always been the case, and I really, really enjoy it. I mean, I've done I've had rent houses, so I've messed around with that some. But just wanted to do commercial real estate. So it made life real simple.
Do you have to have a degree for you? Do you just like, I'm 18, I can do my real estate license? What is it like that's in residential? What is it kind of the same in commercial as well?
It's the same license.
Okay.
So you just need a real estate license, and you can go out and you can You can do transactions. Now, that's as a broker. I mean, my real intent was not to be a broker. I wanted to buy buildings, own them, fix them up, rent them out, and that's that. Now, a good vehicle to get to that is to go out and become a broker. And so for years I did that, and I would do third-party transactions because that's a really good means of learning the business. So, and you know, that's what ADEPT is. ADEPT's a brokerage company. Primarily, I focus on the investment side, but I've enjoyed every bit of it.
Yeah. Well, what I was kind of getting at is that, like, you could have, you didn't have to go to university, right, to be a commercial real estate.
Correct.
But you thought, hey, why not? I'll enjoy my club experience as well, and I'm going to get a degree anyway.
Yeah. And I just don't know how helpful any of the school was anyway. So for starters, all the license preparation is all geared towards residential.
Right.
I mean, so when you take the test, it's completely irrelevant, or almost completely irrelevant to anything to do with commercial. It's almost
completely irrelevant to be a residential too, right? It's all these random questions. Anyone who's listening that's a real estate agent will know that the test doesn't teach you how to sell houses. It teaches you how to not get sued.
I don't know what all that stuff is, but it's nothing helpful whatsoever.
Yeah, you're right. So you, what degree did you do in college then?
So I studied finance, and at the time I was, starting to buy and sell houses, and really just kind of pursued my business and studied finance.
Yeah. Were you working part-time, full-time for anybody at that time when you were in college?
When I was in college and in high school, I had a very busy lawn and landscaping business for years.
Okay.
And then my intention behind that was to save up money to buy my first house, and so that I could start, buying houses and renting them out. So I did that. I started renting out houses, but then I started buying houses and renting them out. But pretty quickly I realized that you needed more money than I had, and so I went out into really full-time brokerage as a means of making some money so I could get to my goal.
Yeah. Tell me about the loan business to save up for the first house.
Oh yeah, man.
That's got to be a story.
Way harder back then than I do now. I'll tell you that. That was just brutal.
Yeah.
So I did landscaping, and like a lot of people do when they're in high school. I was out mowing all sorts of yards and had a couple helpers, and that was a lot of work. So, but I knew I didn't want to do that as a full-time deal, and a lot of people do, and that's great. But again, I knew what my goal was, and so I started buying houses in Southwest Oklahoma City, fixing them up, renting them out, and all over Northwest, different parts, but almost all in Oklahoma City. Although I was from Edmond, and started renting them out, and then. Got into commercial real estate brokerage at the age of 25, and worked in that for a long time.
How old? So tell me about that first house. Where was it? How much did you put down? How much was the house?
Yeah. So my first houses were over on Northwest 29th and Classen. It was about $90,000. Well, actually, okay. So my first house I bought in college. It wasn't truly a rent house because I lived in it, but my first house I bought in college off of 15th Street near UCO, and I rented out my rooms, and that's really where I really felt like, okay, this is definitely what I want to do, because renting out my rooms was great. I rented out a couple of my rooms, and it paid my whole mortgage. I thought this is a great deal. So that was really my first one, and then later on I would go into the city and find houses for considerably less. I mean, buying houses in Edmond is very, certainly when you're in your early 20s, and really by any standard, they're rather expensive.
Yeah. So you get the bug then. You're in college. Like I said, you do what a lot of smart college people do is, hey, let me buy this house because I've saved up enough money for a down payment, and I can have my buddies rent from me and pay my mortgage.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, that's even for everyone listening who's about to graduate university, you should do that too. Buy a house and have your buddies rent from you rather than going and spending $1,500 at an apartment or whatever it is.
So it was really funny. At UCO, the signs would always read room for rent, $250, room for rent, $200. Mine said room for rent $550, and for some reason, people rented it. And then I thought, man, that's great. So then I put up another sign. That was my master bedroom. For the next one, I rented out for $400, and somebody rented it. And then a friend asked, hey, do you have any more rooms? And the only one I had left was mine. So I rented a mine, and I moved into my attic. Now, when I say attic, I don't mean some nice attic. I mean...
You mean a legit attic?
Like a legitimately horrible attic. I mean, you want to talk about cold, man. I would have like 2 electric blankets stacked up on me, and I was living in that thing. It was miserable. The funniest part was I bought a coin-operated washer and dryer.
Yeah.
And I put it in there, and because I started wanting to charge my roommates to wash their clothes, and man, they were not happy about that. And so there was a lot of bitterness. But I mean, the funniest part was to dry your clothes, it would take like 6 cycles to dry them. I mean, they would come out and they're watching you, hey, I want a refund. I mean, I'm sorry, there are no refunds. So that was definitely a point of contention.
Yeah.
But it turned out great. So I had that house for 5 years, and I sold it, and it was good.
Yeah. You ever drive by that house to remind yourself?
I do. I drive by it sometimes, and it's
Yeah,
I do.
A great reminder. I'm sure one day you might even buy it back just to have it, right?
Maybe so.
Yeah. So you said you're 25, you get into the brokerage side of things as trying to with having clients, right? You're helping clients buy commercial deals, and then, like I said, making more money. So you're saving more money with the whole goal of, now that I know more about these deals, I can be the first one to these deals because they're going to be on the market. And then, rather than take it to your client, there's an opportunity one day where you think, you know what? The numbers make sense. I'll do this.
Well, it does put you in traffic in the sense that you can get involved in a deal when it makes sense. So certainly there's occasions where you can buy a property and it works out great for the seller, and you're seeing transactions all day, every day. So there's plenty of opportunities for that to make sense. So it's helpful because you're in the market.
Yeah, and so that grows. You build from there. You build your client base. You meet a lot of great people, and that's the one thing I think about business in Oklahoma City that I've learned over 10 years. It's relationship business, isn't it? Like, if the deal doesn't work, it doesn't matter. We're still gonna be friends after it. Like, it's not a huge deal. But tell me about the kind of that period. Like that. You graduated. You kind of know what you're doing. You're a broker now, and your goal is now to find your first building at that age.
Yeah. So starting brokerage was super tough. So I knew that I would go a long period of time without making any money. So I sold my house in Edmond. I sold my lawn business to a friend of mine, and had a savings, and I needed it because the first year and a half in brokerage, I made $1,500, and it was tough. I mean, so getting started in commercial real estate is super difficult. I was my first assignment was leasing the First National Center, which is really awesome. I mean, I went from mowing lawns to leasing the First National Center, and I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's a very large building. At the time, it was mostly vacant, so I got a nice office on the 26th floor. I was super pumped, and I went there and promptly couldn't. I mean, that was a hard assignment. So I went there and started trying to lease that thing out. I think everybody in Oklahoma City has a story about First National, and but the first year was tough, but the second, really at the end of the second year, things had gone very well, and I had been fortunate to get plugged in with a really great team, a great guy by the name of Tim Strange. I gave him my first job as a brokerage at a place called Sperry Van Ness, and went out and started selling office buildings, shopping centers, and it went well.
Yeah. For people who really aren't in the real estate world and don't get commercial real estate, when someone comes to you and says, hey, I have an office building, or I have a mall or whatever, can you lease it? You're not making phone calls to like the locals, right? You're figuring out who like the rep is for, the big box stores, right?
Yeah.
What was that like at the time as well, being the first, coming into it fresh as well?
Well, you're right. It is daunting in terms of knowing where to start. So I started out as a leasing agent. That's kind of maybe, let's say, a good jumping in point. And you hustle around downtown and you try to know who to call. It's probably not your friends and family,
right,
like a lot of businesses are. So to your point, it's probably not people you know already. It's probably they're probably represented by a site selection company if it's retail or something like you had mentioned, and it can be daunting. And ergo, the first year and a half, I made $1,500 because it's very hard to start. So
because you're picking up the phone to whoever whoever the big guy in commercial is at the moment, a few in Oklahoma City, saying, "Hi, I'm Zach Martin,"
and they're like, "Who the heck are you?"
Who is Zach Martin?
Hang up the phone.
Right. Yeah.
So it was a tough deal.
Yeah.
So at the time I think I had like one suit, so I would wear it to work every day and try to keep it perfectly clean. I mean, it was tough, and I didn't even know what questions to ask.
Right.
So or what to do. So it was very. But luckily, like I said, I was very fortunate to get plugged into a good team. I tried really hard to get that job. I would go up there all the time, like trying to get hired, and just any excuse I could come up with the office and try to hang out until they threw me out. So it was good.
There's some really great lessons in that, what you just said, right? Like, building up a savings basically for a year, knowing that it's going to suck, and the fact that you literally made $1,500, right? Which is, but all the things that you learned during that time, as you grow as a person, right? You get told no hundreds, maybe even thousands of times, right? And then you just persevere. And for people listening who want to be in the entrepreneur space, regardless of if it's commercial real estate, there's a lot of lessons to be learned there of just perseverance and not giving up, and just constantly working at that goal.
The lucky part for me was, again, I'll go back to just knowing what I wanted to do, because it wasn't, so my first year and a half was really bad, but it wasn't, that's what I was going to do. That's what I wanted to do forever. So, okay, so the first year and a half was bad. Well,
in the grand scheme of things, it's a short, 18 months.
Especially if you're not thinking about quitting. I was like, well, this is what I'm going to do. So the first year and a half is really bad. And I would meet people that were advanced at it, and they were really good. And I was like, okay, well, I'll just hang out with that guy and ask him questions. So that's what I wanted to do. So
how does where do we go from there to adapt to where we are now?
So I spent 12 years with a large company, and I'm super grateful for the time I had there. I learned a lot. It's a pretty natural progression in your career when you're spending a lot of time working on your own deals, when you're transacting your own investments. It's a pretty natural progression to eventually start your own shop. And as evidenced by there was kind of a wave of us that got in, and a lot of those guys that are really about my age or started their own businesses several years back. A lot of my peers did. So anyway, let's see, 4 years ago, maybe a little more. I can't remember. 4.5 years ago, I left, and I was very fortunate to get started with one of my very good friends, Andrew Huang. He's an attorney. He's a super sharp guy. He himself had a very good career in terms of brokerage and investments, and we'd been friends for years. And we teamed up and started ADEPT in Bricktown and opened up shop, and so it just made sense. He was at a similar place in his career too, where he had been doing it for a long time, and he was ready to, it just made sense to do his own thing.
Yeah. And during this period then, had you kind of ticked off the goal of owning your own buildings as well?
Yeah. Well, at that point, both he and I already owned some property, and we knew that that's what we really wanted to do. We were very much focused on buying industrial buildings.
Yeah.
And our timing was very good. We had been buying industrial buildings for a while, which kind of, if you're at your day job and you're out doing your own thing, you can kind of see how that kind of creates opportunity to start your own deal, and maybe even some angst in terms of your moonlighting on the job. So we had very similar goals. We knew what we wanted to do, and we were both already doing that, and we just kind of hit the gas pedal and got started.
Where was your first building?
Really, the first deals I did before ADEPT were a number of things I did in Bricktown. I developed some buildings there. My first deal with Andrew was on Southeast 39th. Mm-hmm. We bought 8 buildings that were in terrible condition. I mean, it was in a pretty. Well, it's funny. It's actually a tough area, mostly because of this complex. It was a mess. It was they were abandoned, vandalized, and they needed a full redo. So we bought that complex, and it was a former headquarters of some company, and proceeded to fix it up.
Yeah. And I think, like, obviously you've been in the business for a long time, and you know, you see opportunity, right? And you know the cost that it's going to take to flip it around and make it presentable and hopefully make a profit on the other side. And it seems over the years that, you know, the harder you work at it, the you know, not that the harder you work, the luckier you get, but the more opportunities that you see because you're doing it for so long.
That's well said.
Right?
Yeah.
You know, I hate the word luck. It's you know, it's never lucky when someone's hands are sore and bleeding from hitting golf balls, you know, for 10 hours a day.
What's the saying? Most overnight success stories are 20 years in the making.
Yeah.
So that's luck.
Yeah. You're right. That's luck. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's kind of like, I mean, being in Oklahoma City and, you know, and just seeing the growth especially on the commercial side over the last 15 years.
Well, now that is, I don't know if I want to say lucky or good fortune or whatever, but I've been very fortunate in so my parents, your parents, my parents stepped out into the workforce in 1980s, maybe a little before that actually, but I mean, imagine stepping out into the oil bust. And as hard working and as smart as you might be, that's going to be tough. Now, I'm not saying he's a victim, but I'm just saying you have challenges.
Yeah.
I've been very fortunate in the sense that I stepped out into the beginning of one of the longest bull runs in American history in terms of our economy. Certainly the national economy, but certainly for Oklahoma City, we have seen an expansion of our population, of commercial real estate values, of downtown Oklahoma City, which is precisely, you know, just where I specifically work. So that was very fortunate to step out in 2005 or 6 or whenever I started downtown, right as, you know, things were really, you know, that's when the original Maps project was really, the benefits were beginning to really set in. And it was very fortunate.
Yeah. Opportunity is great, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a good opportunity.
Yeah.
It's a good opportunity.
You just mentioned Maps as well. Obviously, you know, a huge part of Oklahoma City. You know, I've been here 10 years now, and it's clearly been a big part since I've been here. And obviously, like you just mentioned, you know, starting around that time as well was great for you. You know, we're on Maps 4, and it seems like everything they've done has worked.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, Maps has been, so Maps, for anybody that's not familiar, is a metropolitan area planning system. It began in, I believe, 1996. It was a 1 penny sales tax to raise money for public works projects. And the original Maps was $280 million. Now, it was either 230 or 280. Anyway, they built a number of projects downtown, and it's been tremendously beneficial for the downtown area. And then we've seen a few other maps since then. They're just finishing up Maps 4, and a lot of neat projects have arisen as a result of those endeavors.
Yeah, obviously we can't really, I mean, every podcast I seem to do, COVID comes up, so I'm going to bring it up because it's such an impact on commercial real estate. I mean, the residential market kind of stopped for 2 weeks, and then it went absolutely mental because everyone realized that they needed 2 home offices, and the rates were still good, and we're still in a great housing market. What's it been like on the commercial side? Because obviously everyone's office was like, you're working from home now, you know? I mean, you've got plenty of friends of mine who are now working from home still.
So we talk about commercial real estate in terms of product types. So your product types are office, office buildings, retail, so that's going to be shopping centers, shopping malls, restaurants kind of lumped into one. Industrial, which is metal buildings, distribution, warehouses, hotels. Those are your product types. So let's start with the bad news. So retail got hurt the worst.
Yeah.
So neighborhood shopping centers have been adversely impacted. Restaurants, obviously, restaurants are specific, or the specific portion of retail that probably got hurt the worst for obvious reasons. I would submit to you that what occurred in terms of retail commerce was already a trend that was taking place, but that probably got expedited by 10 years. And so we saw online shopping really pick up, and things getting sent through the mail really get picked up. Office got hurt next. So people stopped going to offices. People began to do reduction in spaces. Another thing that people don't fully appreciate is that, there was a trend of open workspace that became very popular during pre-coronavirus. Now that's really reversing, and you're wanting to see people compartmentalize their offices again. Well, that is super expensive if you own buildings to go in and retrofit all the spaces you just got done building out. So office got hurt. Things that did really well are industrial did very well. So that's the beneficiary of a lot of that logistical transport and
storage space.
Yes, storage. We've also seen a big housing boom, which has certainly had a positive impact on industrial. So all the people that are so busy out building homes and working on homes all rent space. So your plumbers, electricians, all those guys, they rent industrial space, warehouses to office, from which to run their business. Right. So that's been very busy. And then, of course, apartments and housing did really well. And then, real quick, hotels, we call it hospitality. That's another product type. Hotels have been hurt pretty bad.
They got hammered, didn't they, at the beginning?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So that's well, and a lot of the hotels are shifting to Airbnb. Airbnb is picking up a fair amount of hotel traffic. So again, that's putting more pressure on the housing market, and acting as somewhat of a reduction towards hotel occupancies.
Yeah. It's, I remember March, obviously 2020, everyone's like, the world is on fire, right? Everyone's like, it's chaos, but when it leveled out a little bit and everyone kind of understood, okay, like, we'll be okay. We kind of have a plan now. We need to know, what is working and what isn't working. And, restaurants went to go and hotels was like, okay, we need to figure this out. But, back to your point earlier of being fortunate, it seemed like being in the commercial, industrial space was very fortunate for you guys because, like I said, nobody saw COVID coming, but just having those buildings available for storage, logistics, whatever it was just timing. That was really good.
That was really fortunate. So I had actually my time worked out good. I was invested in Bricktown, sold those assets right before some COVID hit. Some changes happened there, and then I began buying warehouses, and we've been on a good upswing for warehouses.
Another obviously big thing is marijuana business coming here, and either the grows are outside or there are a lot of them that are inside, right? In those warehouses that people might have been storing things in. What's that been like too? Because if anyone drives up and down May Avenue, you could hop. You don't even have to leave your car. Basically, there's so many marijuana distribution places, but the grow side specifically is probably a lot more of what you know about because of how big the buildings they need, right, and the infrastructure they need. Yeah.
So COVID happened just right after the big boom for medical marijuana, and we don't have any property that's rented to medical marijuana spaces, but I can certainly speak to what it's done into the market. So the the grows have taken a considerable amount of space of the available supply. Mm-hmm. So what you saw was call after call after call coming into the office. Well, first, a lot of folks looking for the space, which we don't really get involved in that. But the other phone call we got was plumbers, electricians, cabinet makers calling saying, hey, I've been displaced from my building. We ended up selling it to somebody that's going to do a grow, or our landlord did a lease with a grow, and so now we need a space. So
because the grows are coming in paying double cash for the most part, right?
They perhaps pay a larger amount in some cases. Taking, one of the helpful things that some of those grows have done is they've taken space that was what we call functionally obsolescent. So it's a 30,000 square foot building that's 8 feet tall. It's out in the middle of some field. Just nobody wants this building.
It was a carpet store back in the day.
It was custom built for a very short carpet store. Just incredibly bizarre use. And so for that reason, it's great. I mean, that is the greatest recycling on earth, by the way, is to take an old building, fix it up, and put it to use, as opposed to let it rot and build a new one. So it's super great that old space like that is being put to use. To the extent that space like that has been absorbed, a lot of our Class C space in the Oklahoma City market, I'm very happy about that. I think everybody is. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, it really tightened up what was already a tight market. I mean, industrial space has always been very tight. So in office, for example, we've traditionally in Oklahoma City seen a 15% vacancy rate, up to 20% in the time I've been in the business. Lease space in the industrial sector, the highest that I can remember it was when we had a 7% vacancy rate. Mm-hmm. Today we're probably down, at 2% or 1% even. I mean, at that point it's just almost it's really non-existent. So anyway, the marijuana industry took up a lot of space, got the market really tight, and then COVID hit and it got really tight. So rents have been rising, occupancy has been falling, and it's in high demand.
Yeah. It's working, right? I mean, it seems to, other than the problems that people have out in the country, of people's grows in the country, and we see it all over social media and the news sometimes, the drug busts or whatever, and a lot of people don't realize what is going on out in the country because they never see it. But, there is a lot of illegal grows going on, and the people in the small towns, I was out in Blackwell a couple of months ago, and the guys were like, the people who own the buildings in downtown are happy because, like I said, their buildings are now rented, but it's that moral compass of what have they been rented, why are they being rented, and who are these people? Like they might not even be Oklahomans, if that makes sense, right? They might not even be they might be like me, they might not be an American, but that's a whole set of problems that we don't really have to talk about. Tell me about your passion for cars and where that comes in.
Sure. Well, I've always really liked cars, and it's a fun hobby of mine. I know I've seen you in the car world, and there's just something a lot of my friends are involved in. So it's a fun hobby.
Do you have like a first memory of, like that kind of cliche Lamborghini owner, and I'm going to kind of razz on Lamborghini owners right now.
Yeah.
The first time they see like it's on their bedroom wall or whatever. And
like I had that poster in the 1980s, like rolled up poster of a Lamborghini, and just like every other kid.
Yeah.
So I've always been really into it, and some of my best friends go up to Cars and Coffee, and so it's a fun crew to hang out with.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, not just for cars, right? But it's a great business group. It's a great, you're around people who are at a high level. They're successful, and that's that quote, right? The 5 people you spend the most time around. So you're going to be like, I'm butchering the quote, but everyone knows what it is. It's a great group to be around. Yeah. And you will get to enjoy your hobby and release. And I'm sure no one really talks about work when they're there, which is great. What was the first kind of toy or treat that you gave yourself then after working so hard in real estate to get to, your goals?
Goodness, I waited a long time. I think I'd been in the business for 6 years, and I finally got an Infiniti G35.
Yeah.
Which, any car person is probably laughing at that.
It's the worst sounding car in the world.
Not much of a sports car, but it was pretty inexpensive. But
right.
I mean, I'll tell you, I really tried really hard to be a saver in those early, many, I wouldn't even call them early years, I'd say in the first half, because those first couple of years were so tough that when things did get good, I wanted to be really careful because, I just really wanted to be diligent just in case I, went through. I mean, anyway, that left a big impression on me. Let's say those first couple of years of not making any money in the business. So, but anyway, so I guess I got an Infiniti G35, a long time ago, and that was it. So not a very exciting treat, I suppose.
Was that like a product of like Fast and Furious movies, or was that? I mean, how do you go to buy a G over like a muscle car or something like that?
Yeah. Well, I also keep in mind I only had one car, so I needed to take it to work too.
Yeah.
So to be out showing buildings, I mean, I really couldn't show up in some like souped up Camaro and expect to be taken seriously. I didn't have enough money to buy a really good, really nice car. So so I got an Infiniti and drove it around, and it was fun.
And then you dip your toe in the Mclaren world.
Yeah, years ago I got a Mclaren MP4 12C. That was, and I'd had some other nice cars at that point, but the McLaren MP4 12C was a very cool car. Yeah. I think I got that out of Missouri and really enjoyed that. It was straight pipe. It was really loud. It was super fast. Of course, twin turbo. And really enjoyed that car.
Yeah. So you modded it as well?
A little bit. Yeah, just a few things. Yeah. It's a good car.
So it goes 12C, and then McLaren started designing cars properly, because personally I wasn't a huge fan of the 12C, how it looked. But after that, they went like, they had the arch over the lights. I mean, I love after the 12C for me. They just look great, like 570 GT and the S, or I mean, just amazing cars with the carbon turbo and everything. So you went then to the
I got a
up again.
Yeah, so I got a 570 about a year after getting the MP4, and oddly enough, I got the 570 to replace the MP4, of course, but I didn't really like it. I didn't like the way it sounded. But the big difference was I didn't like the way it sounded compared to the MP4 12C. And you're probably familiar with it, but the 600 LT,
I love that car.
The 620R and the 570 are all basically the same car. And forgive me here, but I'm telling you, they're not as good as the MP4. Right. You're not going to believe this. So when I was in Houston, I went down to Houston to get it. I took my MP4 down there for service, and this service tech, a young guy, came out and he looks at my MP4 and he goes, "No, that's a real one." Now, granted, it was 6 years older. Yeah. It was, but I came to learn what he meant is it really was more. The 570 is kind of it's really just a dumbed down version. I mean, it looks cooler, but the MP4 12C is just way more of a supercar. I mean, it handles better. It sounds better. It might be faster. I mean, I could be. Somebody's going to fact check me on that. I could be wrong, but it sure felt faster. I'll tell you that. So anyway, I actually ended up selling the 570 and kept the MP4 12C.
Okay.
Yeah.
One of the ones I'm surprised that people don't talk about more often is the 675 LT.
Yes.
Because they didn't make that many of them.
Or the 650.
Right.
So in my opinion, the 650 or the 675, which is a very similar car, is the best car for the money. Yeah. In fact, local guy, his name's Lance. The other day I was talking to him and he was like, "Man, should I get the 570?" I was like, "Dude, just get the 650." It is, so it's the front. That car is the front of the P1. Yeah. And for anybody that doesn't know, the P1 is like the mother of all McLarens.
Right.
I mean, well, I guess the F1 technically, but the P1 is very awesome. So the 650 or the 675 is the front of the P1, and it's and then it's basically an MP4 12C. It's the back of the MP4 12C, and then the inside looks like the MP4. So it's beautiful, beautiful car, awesome car.
Yeah.
That would have been a way better move if I'd have known that. I would have gone from the MP4 12C to the 650 if somebody had told me.
Right.
Yeah.
So you didn't know the group at this point, or like the car group or did someone just say?
Well, Nobody told me. I just kind of ran down and got that, but it's the 650s.
Yeah.
And then of course you go to the 720, and that's
every man and their dog has a 720 in Oklahoma City now.
Yeah, that is weird. We need to open a McLaren Oklahoma City dealership.
15 of them now, right?
Yeah, you're not special anymore.
Doesn't matter what color you have.
That's basically the thing. At this point, it's like, what color did you get?
Right.
There's a bunch of them.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of them. So, I mean, somebody might be well served to get like get a Huracan, I guess, if you're thinking about getting one of those, just to have something
a little different. Yeah, but I mean, to that point, and people listening might even zone out at this point, but we're going to talk about cars because we love it. Is that like, for the money, it is pretty much the fastest thing you can buy, right? A 720, and a reliable one, and then you thought, hang on a second, someone calls you up and says, hey, I have a build slot for a 765 LT.
So I am the luckiest guy you're going to meet today. So I was talking to McLaren Atlanta about a 620R.
Yeah.
And actually, the reason I want to get the 620R because I want to get something nobody else had.
Right.
And it's actually, most people probably don't know what that is. It's basically like a 600 LT, like
it's a race car.
Yeah, it's more of a race car. Yeah, that's really cool. You know what that is, by the way. I actually didn't know what it was. I was looking through Auto Trader. I'm like, what is that? And
did they come with the livery already on them, or did they come just a blank color? Because the one I've seen is like black and yellow and has the hood scoop and everything, and just looks like a road going rocket ship.
So they come with the nostrils in the hood.
Right.
I think they messed up because they should have done the exhaust through the bonnet like they did on the 600 LT, but the exhaust comes out the back, which is kind of lame. But anyway, I mean, it's a track car, and it's cool because it's got a massive wing on it, and that's what the 570 is missing. It needs a wing, but the 620's got that. So I'm talking to him, and I said, hey, I was FaceTiming with him is what happened, and he just like pans past a 765, and I was like, dude, what was that? And he was, well, it's a 765. But don't even ask. And so I was like, is there any chance I could get a 765? I mean, it's just a stupid question. Right. And he was like, well, you might be the luckiest guy in the world because somebody had ordered one. And I'm not celebrating this, but I'm just telling you the story. Somebody had ordered one, and they were in the restaurant business, and they had ordered it years before. But because they're in the restaurant business, they weren't going to be able to take delivery potentially.
Right.
And so I said, hey, I'm going to send you a deposit right now, even if, just let me be first in line.
Just to show I'm a serious buyer. Yeah, here's the money. Yeah.
So I sent them a deposit, and, so for anybody that doesn't know, they made 765. Approximately 200 of those made it into the United States. Mm-hmm. And then in order to get one, you have to get an allocation, which is very difficult. It includes, number one, knowing somebody and getting on this list, which certainly, wasn't going to happen. It was years ago. And then you have to prove that you've owned other McLarens. You have to send in a bio. They need to check that you're not a car flipper. And then the fact that I was too close to Dallas almost disqualified me.
Okay.
They were like, well, I don't know if we can sell one to Oklahoma City because that might upset Dallas, whatever. Anyway, long story short, I ended up getting the allocation. Crazy deal. Flew out to Atlanta, picked it up.
Yeah.
Had some work done on it there, and then I flew back and had the car shipped back. So I was really excited to get it. I'll tell you, I wouldn't have. So the biggest favor that whoever ordered this thing did is I remember I asked the guy, hey, tell me about it, and they couldn't tell me anything. They're like, well, it's in production. We don't know. I'm like, well, hold on. Surely you can tell me something.
Can I see the build sheet at least?
They didn't have the build sheet. Yeah. I was like, okay. And so I was like, well, what color is it? And they said, lime green. I'm like, oh my gosh. I was like, surely I can change that, right? Let me change it to anything but that. And they go, well, the problem is where it's at, and there's a lock on it. So as of like 2 months ago, you can't change anything.
Too far down the production line to change it.
It's too far down the production line.
Yeah.
So... and they actually call it lime green on the sticker, but it's actually Napier green, which is a way cooler color.
Right.
It's like highlighter yellow almost.
It is highlighter yellow.
Yeah. Or I call it Ryobi green. I actually have a Ryobi sticker on the car. It's kind of funny. And everybody calls it the Ryobi car, which is kind of funny. But anyway, so that's actually turned out to be a favor, because I never would have got that color. I would have gotten gray. Right. It's like my other two, they were gray. So I would have gotten gray for sure, which would have been like the worst possible choice. So anyway, it turned out good. It's been fun.
And it came with black wheels, and you put chrome ones on it, which makes the color pop even more.
So
chrome silver ones, right?
Yeah, I may have lowered it and done some other things that would probably void my warranty if I mentioned them. Yeah. But yeah, I did some work to it. I did some wheels, so it's really fun. You know, they say it's the fastest production car ever made. It runs at 8.9 second quarter mile right out of the box.
It's rapid.
It's fun.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, especially to bring to work every day.
Yeah.
Which is one of the good things about it. We've spoken previously, right? Is the fact that you can drive it every day if you want to, and you don't have to worry too much about putting too many miles on it like other brands and drivers do, but people definitely appreciate seeing it. It always pops up on the Facebook group, you know, wherever you're at, and I get calls. You know, my brother-in-law is kind of a car guy, but he doesn't know the difference, but he knows the fast car when he sees one. He's like, hey, this McLaren just passed me, and the first question was like, is it Brad? Because we both of us know Brad. And he's like, no, it wasn't Brad. It's like lime green. It's like, yeah, I know it's Zach.
Brad Boone may be the most famous person in Oklahoma City. I mean, I see his car on Car Spotter every single day. It's hilarious. So
finishing up with this then, if someone's listening that wants to get into commercial real estate, or that just wants to be an entrepreneur, what are kind of like your words of wisdom and your kind of last, I guess, little thing here?
Read Rich Dad Poor Dad, spend less than you make, and you know, I guess I'm not big on you don't need to read a whole lot of books. Just try to pick an ideology that you like and try to apply it. So I've always liked Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad Poor Dad. My mom gave that to me when I was 19, and I read it every year, and I give that book to folks, and it's a good guide.
Awesome. Well, Zach, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. Thanks for letting me come down to the office and see the spot. And for everyone listening, I'll post the link to the ADEPT website. You can go check that out. We'll catch you next episode. Cheers.
Thanks.
This podcast is presented by the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, telling Oklahoma's story through its people since 1927. For more information on the Hall of Fame, go to www.oklahomahof.com and follow them on Instagram for daily updates at oklahomahof.
Thank you for listening. We are inspired by those around us and hope that you are too. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review so we can keep telling your stories. For more great Oklahoma content, follow This Is Oklahoma on Facebook and Instagram.